A young woman mistook her new billionaire boss for a waiter, and what happened next shocked everyone. But before we dive into the story, tell us in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit that like button. Enjoy the story. Samantha Sam Carter, a 26-year-old marketing assistant, had always been a small-town girl trying to make it in the big city. She had landed her dream job at one of the top firms in New York, but corporate events, not her scene. Tonight was the company's grand gala, and it was the last place Sam wanted to be. Her high heels were pinching her feet, and the tight, rented dress she was wearing made her feel more like a fish out of water than a confident professional. Sam had only been at the company for 2 months, and while everyone else seemed to be enjoying the lavish evening, she couldn't help but feel like she was just an imposter playing dress-up. The glass of orange juice she was holding felt like it weighed a ton as she tried to act like she belonged in a room full of powerful executives and millionaires. Her boss, the new CEO, Brian Hamilton, was making his first official appearance tonight, and Sam couldn't help but notice the way people were whispering in excitement, their eyes glued to him as he moved around the room. He was tall, handsome, and exuded an aura of confidence that Sam couldn't even begin to imagine for herself. Just act like you're comfortable, Sam. Pretend this glass of juice is an imported cocktail. Smile, look confident, she repeated silently in her head. But her mind kept racing. She couldn't shake the feeling that everyone around her was just waiting for her to screw up. And then, out of nowhere, a man in a black tuxedo with impeccable posture walked past her. Without thinking, Sam called out confidently, "Waiter, could you bring me a glass of champagne, please?" The man stopped in his tracks, his head slowly turning toward her as if he had just heard the most ridiculous thing. The silence that followed felt like it stretched on for eternity. Sam, unfazed, grinned awkwardly and added, "Make sure it's cold, all right?" She tried to act casual, but she could feel her heart rate picking up as the man stared at her in confusion. Finally, he nodded, and without saying a word, he walked away, still looking at her like she had just made the most absurd request. A few minutes later, the man returned, holding a glass of champagne. His confused expression hadn't changed, if anything, it had deepened. "Your champagne," he said, his tone polite but tinged with something Sam couldn't quite place, maybe curiosity, maybe disbelief. "Thanks, stylish waiter. You're quick, efficient, and quite handsome, I must say," Sam said with a cheeky smile, trying to ease the awkward tension. "If you ever get tired of carrying trays, let me know. I can recommend you to a 5-star restaurant." He raised an eyebrow, unsure whether he should laugh or be offended. "Good to know," he replied, a soft laugh escaping from his lips. "By the way, you've got that look, the 'I'm silently judging you' look, am I right?" "I'm not judging you. I'm just curious," he said, leaning in slightly, as if trying to get a better read on her. "Curious about what?" Sam asked, intrigued by the way he was studying her. "You're the first person to give me an order tonight," he responded. "I didn't expect that." "Well, you probably need more orders," she said, taking a bold sip of her drink. "Stay right there and try smiling more." She shot him a mischievous grin. He laughed, softly, like someone trying to hide a smile but failing. "Are you new here? You're observant, or maybe just good at making assumptions." Sam chuckled. "Maybe I'm just good at sounding full of myself. It's a gift, really." He glanced at her glass, then back at her. "Enjoy the evening, Miss Carter," he said with a calm smile, as if her name had been rolling off his tongue for years. "See you later," Sam replied, smirking, as she watched him walk away. She couldn't help but laugh to herself. "The most arrogant waiter I've ever met. But at least he's efficient." Before she could pull herself together, the lights dimmed, and the room grew silent. The music faded out, replaced by a voice coming through the microphone. "Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce the new CEO of our company. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Brian Hamilton." The crowd erupted into applause. Camera flashes went off, and phones were raised as everyone turned to look at the stage. Sam froze. Her hand, still holding the champagne glass, stopped in midair. Her breath caught in her chest. For a brief moment, the world felt like it had paused. It was him. The waiter. Brian Hamilton, the CEO. Her mind raced. She stared, wide-eyed, at the man walking up to the stage. He was the same man who had served her champagne, who she had called a waiter. And just when she thought she couldn't be more embarrassed, Brian's eyes locked onto hers across the room. The moment he spotted her, he smiled. Not just any smile, but the same smirk he had given her earlier, calm, amused, and, somehow, intrigued. Sam nearly choked on her own breath. She coughed to cover it up, trying to act like she was just moved by Brian's impressive entrance. A few people looked over at her, including a woman who offered her water. Sam waved it off, her face burning with embarrassment. "Brilliant, Sam," she whispered under her breath. "You just sent the CEO to get champagne. Career of the century." But Brian didn't seem fazed at all. In fact, he continued his speech with confidence, his voice firm as he thanked the board, praised the team, and spoke about the company's future. All Sam could think about was how she had mistaken the CEO for a waiter. As the evening went on, Sam tried to focus on Brian's speech, but all she could hear in her head was the awkward interaction from earlier. The more he spoke, the more she couldn't shake the memory of how she treated him. "You called the CEO a waiter. You told him to smile more. You offered him a job in a restaurant." With each passing moment, Sam's stomach churned. She couldn't hide from it, she had made an absolute fool of herself. The truth hit her like a ton of bricks. She had just insulted the most powerful person in the company, and now she had to face the consequences. When the speech finally ended, the room erupted into applause. Brian smiled and gave a few brief handshakes to some executives before stepping down from the stage. Sam, feeling completely out of place, turned to leave as quickly as possible. She had to get out of here. She needed air, space, and most of all, a chance to disappear. Sam. Her heart skipped a beat. She turned around like someone caught in the act. It was Clara from HR, the one person Sam really didn't want to see right now. Clara gave her a knowing look. "Hey, did you see that? What a guy, right? So elegant, so composed, but with such a presence." She fanned herself with a napkin. "If I'd known the CEO looked like that, I would have put on more mascara." "Yeah, pretty surprising," Sam replied, forcing a smile, but her face felt like it was frozen in place. Clara tilted her head, studying Sam's expression. "Are you okay? You look a little pale." "I just need some air, I think the champagne's stronger than I thought," Sam said, trying to play it off, though she could feel her heart pounding in her chest. Clara nodded. "Sure, go ahead. If you need anything, just text me." Sam slipped away into the hotel lobby, feeling like the walls were closing in around her. She leaned against a marble pillar, trying to steady her breath. Maybe Brian hadn't even recognized her. Maybe he was just too used to meeting new people every day that he wouldn't remember her face. But deep down, Sam knew she was just kidding herself. He had to remember. How could he not? She had made such a fool of herself. She pulled out her phone, trying to distract herself, but the moment was still lingering in her mind like a bad dream. A notification popped up from her boss. "Marketing team meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. Attendance is mandatory. CEO will be there." Sam sighed and turned her phone off. She didn't want to think about tomorrow. She just wanted to turn back time and fix everything. She didn't know how she was going to face Brian again. The next morning, the office was eerily quiet. The sterile white lights overhead and the hum of the air conditioning made it feel like she was walking into a ghost town. She adjusted her blouse for the third time, trying to calm her nerves as she headed toward the meeting room. At least 20 people were already seated at the long conference table when she arrived. It was exactly 10 a.m. when the door opened, and there he was. Brian Hamilton, the CEO. He stepped into the room wearing a dark suit and a neutral expression. Sam's heart dropped into her stomach. She tried to focus on the agenda, but when Brian's eyes met hers, everything else faded away. It wasn't just a glance, no, he looked directly at her like he knew exactly who she was. The entire room was silent as Brian began the meeting, discussing company goals and future plans. He asked intelligent questions, took meticulous notes, and managed to captivate everyone's attention. Then, without warning, he turned to the marketing team. "We have a major challenge ahead of us," Brian said, leaning forward slightly. "Internal communication needs improvement, and the brand's voice needs to sound more authentic. We need to bring more humanity to it." Sam could feel her face flush. She couldn't escape the sense that she was in the spotlight. It was all too much. "And, by the way," Brian continued, his eyes scanning the room, "I'd like to have a word with Sam Carter. If she's available." The words hit Sam like a ton of bricks. Her body went rigid, and every eye in the room turned toward her. Her boss was asking for her, publicly. She forced herself to stand up, her heart hammering in her chest. "Of course, Mr. Hamilton," she said, her voice surprisingly steady, even though she felt like she was about to faint. Brian stepped aside, subtly gesturing toward the door. Sam stood up, her legs feeling like jelly, and walked out of the room, trying to look calm on the outside even though she was dying inside. They walked down the hallway in silence, until they reached the door to his office. Brian opened the door and gestured for her to enter. As she did, he closed it behind them, and then, finally, broke the silence. "So," Brian began, sitting behind his desk, "do you always make men do what you want?" Sam blinked, unsure of how to respond. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean any harm," she stammered, now realizing how strange that entire night had been. Brian smirked slightly, leaning forward, his expression serious. "No harm done, Sam. In fact, I found it interesting." "Interesting?" Sam repeated, confused. He nodded. "You didn't try to impress me or flatter me. You weren't trying to figure out who I was. You just treated me like a regular person. You're bold, and I respect that. I thought you were part of the staff, but now I see you're someone who sees the world differently." Sam was stunned. She hadn't expected this. The last thing she thought would happen was an offer from Brian Hamilton himself. "Are you saying you want me to work directly with you?" Brian's eyes softened. "Actually, yes. I want to test your potential. I need someone on my team who isn't afraid to ask questions, who isn't afraid to speak up. For 3 weeks, I'd like you to be my temporary assistant. If it works, great. If not, we'll figure it out." Sam stood there for a long moment, feeling the weight of his offer settle in her chest. "Is this for real?" she asked, her voice quiet. Brian smiled slightly, his eyes unwavering. "I wouldn't make an offer like this for just anyone. Do you accept?" Sam paused. She wasn't sure if she was ready, but she could feel her heart pushing her forward. She shook his hand. "I accept." The next few days were a whirlwind for Sam. As she worked more closely with Brian, she began to see a side of him that was unlike the cold, distant CEO that everyone else seemed to see. He was demanding, yes, but he was also surprisingly compassionate and thoughtful. He noticed the little details, and while his leadership style was intense, he made sure to listen more than he spoke. Sam started to understand why people respected him so much, and in turn, she gained his respect as well. Despite their professional bond, things still felt a little awkward. Sam wasn't used to working this closely with someone at such a high level, and the rumors in the office weren't making things any easier. People started whispering about her and Brian, speculating that their relationship went beyond just work. The office gossip was hard to ignore, and Sam found herself constantly second-guessing her every move. One afternoon, as Sam sat in her office organizing notes for Brian's upcoming meeting with a new client, she received a text from Clara. It was a casual message, but it made Sam's stomach twist. Clara, hey, I heard the rumors. Is it true? Are you and Brian Hamilton a thing? Sam's heart sank as she read the message. She knew the rumors were circulating, but seeing them in black and white felt different. She had always prided herself on her professionalism, but now she was being dragged into a situation that had nothing to do with her abilities. She was about to text back when she heard a knock on the door. It was Brian. "You okay?" he asked, stepping inside with a concerned look on his face. Sam forced a smile. "Yeah, just organizing a few things for the client meeting tomorrow." He studied her for a moment, clearly not buying it. "You don't look fine. Everything all right?" Sam took a deep breath. "It's just the rumors. They're everywhere, and it's starting to feel like I can't escape them." Brian didn't say anything at first, letting the silence settle between them. Then, he closed the door and sat across from her, his expression softening. "I've heard them too," he said, his tone more serious now. "But you don't need to worry about that. What's important is your work. I hired you because I respect your talents, not because of anything else. And I'm not going to let office gossip distract us." Sam looked at him, still unsure whether to trust him fully. She had heard the same words from other bosses in the past, only for them to turn around when the pressure came. But there was something in Brian's eyes, something real, that made her feel like he genuinely meant what he said. "Thank you," she whispered, the weight lifting off her shoulders just a little. Brian gave her a small smile, then stood up. "Now, let's get to work. We've got a presentation to nail tomorrow." The rest of the day passed in a blur of meetings, reports, and last-minute preparations. But for the first time since she had started at the company, Sam felt like she was exactly where she needed to be. She had earned her spot, and no one, not the rumors, not the whispers, could take that away from her. That night, after the office had cleared out, Brian came to find her in her office. He had a coffee in hand and a determined look on his face. "I've been thinking," he said, taking a seat next to her. "You've been working hard, and I want you to take the lead on the next project. We need someone who can think outside the box. Someone who can bring a fresh perspective." Sam blinked in surprise. "Wait, what? You want me to lead it?" "Yes. You've got the vision, Sam. I believe in you." For a moment, Sam couldn't speak. This was it, the kind of opportunity she had been hoping for. She had worked her way up from the bottom, and now, for the first time, she was being given the chance to truly prove herself. "All right," she said finally, a fire igniting inside her. "I'm in. Let's do this." As she left the office later that night, Sam felt a new sense of purpose. Brian had given her the chance to show what she was capable of, and now she was determined to make the most of it. She had always known she could do this job, now she had the chance to prove it. But as she walked toward the subway, something started to gnaw at her. Despite everything, despite the success and the opportunities, there was still a part of her that felt like something was missing. She couldn't quite put her finger on it, but she knew it was something that had to do with Brian. The dynamic between them was shifting, and Sam wasn't sure if it was just the pressure of the job or something more personal. The next few weeks flew by as Sam threw herself into the project. She was leading the team, managing presentations, and coming up with strategies that impressed even the most cynical executives. Brian was watching her closely, offering guidance when needed, but for the most part, he gave her the freedom to take charge. He didn't micromanage her, and that alone gave her the confidence to push boundaries and try new things. Despite the intense work, their relationship had begun to shift. It was subtle at first. Brian started sitting closer to her during meetings, their casual conversation stretching from business to personal anecdotes. Sam began to notice the way his eyes lingered on her, the way his smile seemed to carry more weight now. But she brushed it off, telling herself it was just the nature of their growing professional relationship. Still, every time they interacted, there was an undeniable spark. And every time they shared a laugh, something deep inside Sam made her wonder if there was more between them than just work. One afternoon, Sam sat at her desk, reviewing a proposal, when her phone buzzed with a new message. She clicked it open. "Brian, Sam, can we talk? I need you to come to my office." Her heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected the message, and suddenly, every scenario ran through her mind. Was this about the rumors? Was she in trouble? Or, more likely, was this about her upcoming performance evaluation? Shaking off the nerves, Sam grabbed her notebook and walked toward Brian's office. As she knocked on the door, Brian called out, "Come in." Sam stepped inside, and Brian stood up from behind his desk, looking unusually serious. "Close the door behind you, please." Sam did as he asked, her heart beginning to race. She couldn't tell if the tension in the air was coming from him or if it was just her own nerves. "Sit down," Brian said, motioning toward the chair. He was calm, but his eyes were focused, almost as if he was preparing to say something important. Sam sat down, her mind racing. "I wanted to talk to you about your future here," Brian began, pausing as if choosing his words carefully. "You've done an incredible job leading this project, Sam. Your work has exceeded my expectations. You've proven that you've got what it takes to be at the top." Sam's breath caught in her throat. She hadn't expected this. She had thought she was doing well, but she never imagined it would come to a conversation like this. Brian continued. "There's an opportunity that's just opened up, an executive position in the company. It's a big move, and I think you're ready for it." Sam blinked, unable to believe what she was hearing. "An executive position?" He nodded. "Yes. The position is yours if you want it. But I also want you to know, I won't push you into anything. I want you to decide if this is the path you want to take. You'll have more responsibility, more visibility, and of course, more pressure." Sam sat there, stunned. This was the kind of offer she had always dreamed of, but now that it was in front of her, she wasn't sure how to react. I don't know what to say." Brian's expression softened. "Take your time. You've earned this. But whatever you choose, I want you to know that I believe in you." The room fell into silence, and Sam's mind raced. She had worked hard for this moment, and now it felt like she was standing at a crossroads. She had the chance to take her career to new heights, but she also felt something pulling her in a different direction. She had come so far, and now she had to make a choice. Did she want this powerful role that would catapult her into a new world? Or was there something else she was missing? Brian didn't rush her. He sat back in his chair, waiting patiently as Sam gathered her thoughts. Finally, she spoke. "I need some time to think about it," she said. "This is a huge decision. I want to make sure I'm doing what's right for me." Brian nodded, clearly understanding. "Of course. Take all the time you need. Just know that you've earned it, and the opportunity will be waiting for you when you're ready." As Sam left his office, her mind swirled. She walked down the hallway, her heart pounding in her chest. This was the chance of a lifetime, but something felt off. Maybe it was the pressure. Maybe it was the growing tension between her and Brian. Or maybe it was the pull of something deeper, something she hadn't fully acknowledged yet. The next few days were filled with mixed emotions. Sam continued working with the team, focusing on her responsibilities, but the offer sat heavy on her mind. She knew she had to decide soon, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something in her life was about to change drastically. And Brian? He seemed distant, almost as if he were giving her space. But every time she caught him looking at her, the weight of his gaze left her wondering if the tension between them was more than just professional. The days following Brian's offer were filled with a mixture of excitement and uncertainty. Sam had always known she had the drive and talent to succeed in her career, but now, with this opportunity sitting in front of her, she realized just how much of herself she had yet to discover. For weeks, she had been working non-stop, pushing herself harder than ever before, and it was paying off. The team was achieving their goals, and the project she was leading was getting rave reviews. But the question remained, was she ready for the next step? Each day that passed brought her closer to a decision, but every time she thought about the offer, she felt a little more conflicted. She had come to enjoy the role she was in now, the responsibility of leading her team, and the creative freedom it gave her. The idea of an executive position sounded incredible on paper, more recognition, more power, and more influence, but it also meant more pressure, more expectations, and less time for herself. Sam had always been a go-getter, someone who believed in pushing herself to the limit. But lately, she had started to question what success truly meant to her. Was it about climbing the corporate ladder, or was it about being true to herself and finding balance in her life? One afternoon, after a particularly intense meeting, Sam stepped out onto the balcony of the office to take a break. The city skyline stretched out before her, the hustle and bustle of New York City in full swing. She breathed in deeply, feeling the weight of everything she had been carrying. As she looked out over the city, she couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. Just a few months ago, she had been an unsure new hire, trying to make her way in a world that felt completely foreign. Now, she was a leader in her own right, someone who had earned the respect of her colleagues and, most importantly, herself. But even as she stood there, feeling proud of how much she had accomplished, she knew that the decision she was facing wasn't just about work. It was about her life, about who she wanted to be and what she wanted from her future. It was then that she realized something crucial. She had always focused on what others expected of her, but now it was time to focus on what she wanted. No one could make this decision for her. She had to make it for herself. A voice behind her broke her thoughts. "You're still out here." Brian's voice was soft, his footsteps approaching. "You've been working non-stop. Maybe you should take a break." Sam turned around to face him. There was something different in his gaze now, less of the boss-employee dynamic, and more of a personal connection. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to relax, to let go of the tension she had been carrying. "I'm just thinking," she said, her voice quieter than usual. Brian smiled, leaning against the railing beside her. "About the offer?" She nodded. "Yeah. It's a big decision. I feel like I've been chasing success for so long, but now I'm not sure what that even looks like anymore." Brian was quiet for a moment, as if considering her words. "I get it. You've been working harder than anyone. But remember, it's not just about success in the office. It's about being happy with who you are, with the life you're building." His words hit her harder than she expected. Brian wasn't just a boss. He was someone who understood the struggle of balancing ambition with personal happiness. And maybe, just maybe, he had been through the same internal battle. "I never really thought about it like that," Sam admitted. "I've been so focused on proving myself, I forgot to stop and ask if it's what I actually want." Brian nodded. "It's easy to get caught up in that. But what's the point of climbing the ladder if you're not enjoying the view?" Sam smiled, a small weight lifting from her chest. She had always respected Brian, but hearing him speak so openly made her feel like they were on the same wavelength for the first time. He wasn't just offering her an opportunity, he was giving her the space to figure out what was truly important. "I think I need to take a step back," she said, her voice growing more confident. "Not just to decide about the offer, but to really think about what I want from life. I've been so focused on external expectations that I lost sight of my own." Brian gave her an encouraging smile. "That's a good move, Sam. Take your time. And if you need to talk it out, I'm here." For the first time in a long while, Sam felt a sense of calm wash over her. She had made progress, both professionally and personally, but now it was time to make a decision that was true to herself, not just to her career. The next day, as Sam sat at her desk reviewing the latest project updates, she realized something: she wasn't just growing as a professional. She was growing as a person. And no matter what she decided about the offer, she knew that she was capable of achieving whatever she set her mind to. The days after her conversation with Brian were filled with reflection. Sam took a step back from the constant hustle, making time for herself outside of work. She spent the evenings walking around the city, visiting her favorite spots that reminded her of simpler times. She found herself thinking less about the pressure of the next big opportunity and more about the kind of person she wanted to become. At work, she continued leading her team with the same passion and dedication as before. But now, she felt a new sense of clarity. She wasn't just doing it for the accolades or the promotions. She was doing it because she believed in the mission, in the impact they were making. It was no longer about proving herself to others, it was about proving to herself that she could make a difference in a way that felt authentic and true. One afternoon, she sat in the conference room, presenting the final report on the project that had been her focus for the past few months. The team had worked tirelessly, and the results spoke for themselves. As Sam walked through the numbers, her voice steady and confident, she could feel a shift in how others were perceiving her, less as a young assistant, and more as a leader. When the presentation ended, there was a moment of silence. Then, the applause started. It wasn't just polite clapping, it was genuine, heartfelt appreciation. Her colleagues looked at her with respect, their admiration clear. Sam's heart swelled with pride. This was her moment. This wasn't about the offer Brian had given her, or about any title. This was about her finding her own voice, her own strength. After the meeting, Brian approached her, a warm smile on his face. "You did great today," he said. "You've earned their respect. You've earned mine." Sam met his gaze, the weight of the last few months lifting from her shoulders. "Thank you," she replied. "I think I'm starting to understand what you meant when you said it's not just about success in the office. It's about doing what feels right." Brian nodded, his eyes reflecting pride and understanding. "I'm glad to hear you say that. It's been a pleasure watching you grow. You've made a real impact here." As the day came to a close, Sam sat at her desk, her mind finally clear. She had spent so much of her life chasing after something, some idea of success, some expectation of what she should be, that she had forgotten to ask herself if it was what she truly wanted. Now, she realized, success wasn't just about climbing the corporate ladder. It was about finding the balance between ambition and self-awareness, between pushing yourself and knowing when to take a step back. Success was about living in alignment with your values, and most importantly, it was about knowing that you are enough, just as you are. That evening, Sam stood on the balcony again, watching the city lights twinkle below. It was quiet now, the noise of the day fading into the background. For the first time in a long while, she felt at peace with herself. She had made it. Not just professionally, but personally. She had discovered who she was, and where she wanted to go. Brian had given her the opportunity to grow, but it was Sam who had made the choice to embrace that growth. As the night sky stretched out before her, she knew one thing for certain: she was no longer chasing someone else's idea of success. She was creating her own path, one decision at a time. Her future was hers to shape, and for the first time, she felt ready to step into it. Sam's journey taught her that success is not a destination, but a journey of self-discovery. It's easy to get caught up in external expectations, but true fulfillment comes from aligning with your own values. The key to growth is not in pushing harder but in embracing who you are and making decisions that reflect your true self. Life is full of challenges, but when you trust yourself and the process, you realize that you are more capable than you think. Sometimes, the greatest victories are the ones that happen within, not outside. What do you think of Sam and Brian's journey? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. From 0 to 10, how would you rate this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss any of our latest stories. Take a moment to explore more inspiring tales by clicking here at the end.